right, well, welcome everybody. Good morning, good morning. Great to have you join us for this raw chat. I'm super excited about this conversation with Carol Haddock, Director of Houston Public Works. Thanks for joining us. Please make sure you're on mute. If you're on your phone, just put yourself on mute. If you're online on the Zoom application, on the bottom left, you'll see a little mute option. We appreciate if you mute yourself so we can get a great recording to send out to everyone afterwards. Welcome, Elizabeth. Feel free to chime in on the chat and say hello. I see Elizabeth Orton, Elizabeth Bay, all the Elizabeths are here. And today, this is just a beautiful opportunity for us all to hear from Carol Haddock about what it means to lead with soft strength. So most of you know I've had the thrill of working with Houston Public Works for almost 2 years now on a massive transformational initiative. I'm sure Carol will talk a little bit about it. And the outcomes have really been, for me, mind-boggling. Faster, bigger, better than I've ever seen in my 25 years doing this work. And I believe very strongly it's due to the kind of leadership that Carol offers. Her vision, her passion, she's strong, she's firm, she's straight, she tells the truth, but she also does it with loving kindness. And so, you know, I think all of you know I did a TEDx women talk on the power of soft strength. And so I thought, wow, it would be so wonderful for us to hear from women who are leading with soft strength, what that really means and how they do it. So Carol, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, good. So I thought we could start, and I'll show everybody a picture of you here a little bit. You are the first woman leader of the largest infrastructure agency in the United States. That sounds big, and I know it is. And I'm wondering if perhaps you take a couple of minutes and tell us a little bit about who you are. And would you share with us also, what does Houston Public Works do? And if you'd share just some of the data and the statistics of day to day, week to week, what you're responsible for, I think it'll help everybody get some context for where you sit and what you take ownership for on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, I'm always proud to brag about our organization. So Houston Public Works, as you said, is the largest accredited public works agency in the United States. We're accredited by the American Public Works Association for what we do. So we are responsible for the city of Houston to provide water, to take away your wastewater and treat it and return it to the environment. We're responsible for all of the streets that people drive on daily. We're responsible for the storm drainage systems that takes care of the massive amounts of rain that we get in the Houston area. We're also responsible for the permitting of the design and the inspection of the construction of all development in the city of Houston, whether it's public or private. So we touch every single Houstonian every single day with what we do on a daily basis, whether it's providing the water or whether it's making sure the house or the grocery store or the hospital or the school that you're in for that day, that the building is safe for you to be in. That's what we do on a daily basis. There's about 4,000 of us that take care of this on a daily basis. And we are one of the most diverse organizations in the city. We're also one of the most diverse organizations in the country as far as the composition of our employees, whether they be born in the U.S. or they came to the U.S., whether they be male, female, languages spoken, races that are represented. We are just a very diverse and complex organization to deliver these services to our Houstonians every single day.
Yeah, amazing. You might have mentioned this and maybe I wasn't paying attention, but what is the size of the area that you service and the number of gallons of water that you're responsible for?
Sure. So we service, it's about 650 square miles. There's an official number for the city of Houston, but it's about 650 square miles. And if you stop and think about that, that's almost as big as the state of Rhode Island. We're not quite as big as the state of Rhode Island, but that's almost how big we are. And we actually make 146 billion gallons of water every day. We treat 146 billion gallons of water and deliver it not only to the 2.3 million Houstonians, but to an additional 2 million people that surround the city of Houston, outside the city of Houston, that we also make and sell water to.
Yeah, and I understand that in the 2020 census, we expect that Houston will be the third largest city in the US, right?
You know, it's going to be close, but we're getting closer every day to taking over that third spot.
Okay, great, awesome. All right, and did you share with us a little bit about your background and how you got to be where you are?
Certainly. So I'm a native Texan. I was born and raised in South Texas, really kind of outside of the San Antonio area, west and southwest of San Antonio, near the Mexico border. And
Oh, I think you froze. Did everybody freeze, or is it just Carol who froze? Oh.
We can still hear you.
Okay, great.
We can hear you, but not Carol.
Yeah, so, okay, I think we lost our speaker. So hold on, guys. We'll see what we need to do to get her back. I'm sure they're working on it right now. So while they're working on it, let me just send a quick text here. Hold on. This is what happens when you're live and you work for the city of Houston. So while we're waiting for Carol to come back, let me just say that working with Houston Public Works has probably been one of the most gratifying and humbling work experiences that I've had. And I say that because the people who work for Public Works are, you know, don't always do the most glamorous jobs. You know, a lot of them are treating wastewater, or they're doing, you know, they're digging ditches, or, you know, it's not pretty and it's not glamorous. They're not incredibly well paid. There's not a lot of money for merit increases and things like that. And so, but despite that, people have this incredible humility and commitment to service. They're so gracious, and they don't have a sense of resignation or cynicism. And so what we've been doing there is sort of sparking a movement and giving people the opportunity to reshape their future and step into creating an environment of unity, of dignity, of kindness, respect, and building the resilience that people need, not only to do the jobs that they need to do every day, but to be able to handle sometimes massive crisis. As you know, Houston is prone to flooding. So it's a very tricky city to manage, and an aging infrastructure that's very underinvested. So there are a lot of complaints and upsets from the citizens of Houston, because sometimes they feel like things are not being dealt with in the way that they need to. And despite it all, the people who work there, Carol's back. I'm saying great things about you all. Despite it all, people just show up with this incredible sense of service. Okay, did you hear all that? Or I was just saying.
I'm back for now, and so I came in as you were talking about aging infrastructure, and so I think it was very appropriate that our aging infrastructure came out as we went into that. So I was talking about, you know, coming to Houston, working at the Harris County Flood Control District. So I came to the city of Houston about 14 and a half years ago. And in my time here at the city of Houston, I was in a planning role where I worked across the department and across the city in what we did for infrastructure planning throughout the city, and really had the opportunity to work with and understand throughout the city the challenges that many of my colleagues in other departments were facing with limited resources, with trying to work with the infrastructure in place, you know, how we tried to implement projects with limited funding, how we could actually work together to make projects that maybe benefited more than one department. And then about 5 weeks before Hurricane Harvey hit, I was asked to step into the acting director role for the department. And 6 months later, in January of 2018, I was actually appointed as the director of Houston Public Works. And I will tell you that the 2 years and 6 months that I've had the opportunity to be acting and permanent in this role, the department has gone from the lowest of the low in actually losing a colleague in Harvey and watching our city suffer through the effects of the flooding of Harvey, to the highs of civic and sporting events, all the way to just, you know, what we accomplish on a daily basis. And what you were saying about the passion of the employees in this department is what makes leading this department easy. The job day to day is not easy, but the motivating employees is not the challenge in accomplishing what it is that we need to do, because the employees of this department they have a passion for public service. And that's how they show up every day. And if we allow them to do that, they are going to serve the public with passion and purpose every single day.
Yeah, amazing human beings. So I have a whole bunch of questions. So should we dive in?
Absolutely.
Okay, so first question is, you know, obviously we have a lot of women leaders on this call, as well as some very courageous men. And, you know, part of the discussion that we want to grapple with here is, what is it like to be a woman in a leadership role in probably a male-oriented environment? And I know for you particularly, Carol, you're the first woman in the history of Houston Public Works to take on this leadership role. So if you would share with us, you know, what has your experience been, and how have people responded to you being the first woman leader of Houston Public Works, and how have you dealt with that?
You know, I'll be honest with you. At first, I didn't view my experience as any different than anybody else who's been asked to fill this seat. And part of that's just from my upbringing. I grew up in a family that only had daughters. We did everything. We sewed, we cooked, we cleaned, we mowed the yard, we built things, we used power tools, you know. And so a lot of those things about being the director of public works, I didn't differentiate the fact that whether it was, you know, me being a guy or me being a woman, I was just the director of public works. And then, you know, people started asking me questions about it, and I had to actually stop and reflect that my background is not everybody's background. And I had very strong women role models throughout my life. I've never encountered a female director of public works, but the way I was raised, it didn't discourage me from pursuing things in my career. But what I had to stop and recognize, and what people pointed out to me and became so important and so integral to this experience, is that not everybody has those role models to look up to and say, oh, wow, that could be a career path for me. Oh, wow, that's something that I didn't even know that women could lead a public works agency, an agency that drives backhoes and dump trucks and runs water plants. I didn't know that women could do that. And so to me, then I had to kind of come to, oh, wow, actually, this is not just a cool opportunity to be director of public works. It's an even cooler opportunity to allow yourself to be viewed as, and to step into and embrace that role of, how do I help inspire that next generation? How do I inspire those young girls that are interested in math and science to stay interested in math and science? You know, how do I inspire them to pursue their passion? And not let somebody tell them they shouldn't do that, or that they shouldn't be good at it. And so in a lot of ways, has it been different? Absolutely, because that part of it has opened doors and created opportunities and allowed me to talk with high school students. It's allowed me to talk with elementary school students. It's allowed me to talk with student chapters. I mean, they've already picked civil engineering, but they didn't know that public service might be a career path they could pursue in civil engineering. And that's not to say that the young men out there don't need inspiration as well. It's just to say that having somebody to look to and say somebody's actually done this actually just takes one of those pieces of doubt out of the equation. And that's the part of it that actually I'm not sure I recognized or appreciated at the beginning of this journey.
Yeah, and I think it's valuable for all of us. By the way, if you're not on mute, if you could just mute yourself. But I think it's really valuable for all of us as women in the workplace, because we're looking for real live models of women who've bust through barriers and are sort of paving new roads, if you pardon the pun, and how you can do that without having to behave like a man. Now, we all love men. We have incredible respect and appreciation for them, but I think there's something unique that as women we bring to the workplace. We have unique attributes. And if we have the courage to embrace those unique attributes of compassion, caring, kindness, authenticity, with the get it done kind of mindset that you would have in a sort of male-oriented work environment, I think that's what gives women their true strength. And I think you do that so well because you're very authentic. And I think people really appreciate that. So let's look at the next question here. So question number 2 is, oops, I'm going ahead of myself. Hold on. Question number 2, what do you believe are the greatest assets of women leaders? You know, what is it that you and other women who you appreciate and respect bring that are their greatest assets, and in some cases sort of uniquely feminine assets that give women the ability to lead powerfully and effectively and produce, you know, incredible outcomes, just like you do at Houston Public Works?
Well, you talked about, when you started this, you talked about compassion and you talked about caring. And those are attributes I believe that anybody can choose to display at work. But I will say that women do it very naturally. It's something that comes naturally to us. Emotion in the workplace is something that is often frowned upon. And now I will say out of control emotion is not a good thing. But there's nothing wrong with expressing emotion in the workplace, of being happy when you're happy, of being sad when somebody's sick or somebody's hurt or you've lost a colleague, of being, and one of the things that's, and I will tell you, any previous director that was a male could not have gotten away with the fact that I walk into a room and I greet everybody with a hug. I'm just a hugger. But they're, you know, it's not something that most men would be able to do. I mean, one, they might not be comfortable doing it, but 2, people would look at them like, what are you doing? But, you know, for me, they all give me a great big hug back. And so are there differences between men and women? Absolutely. And so what do I believe are the greatest assets? I believe that women have in general, because we have been allowed to use our emotions our whole life, we have a much more mature use of and influence through our emotions in the workplace. And I think that it's actually very healthy. I think it's very healthy for us to be able to bring them. I've actually cried here at work. There have been times that it's not necessarily my proudest moment that I'm crying, but there are other times that it's like, you know what, it's okay for people to see that something has gotten you to the point that that the only emotion that's appropriate at this point is to cry. And it's really not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Now it's bad to lose your control of your emotions, but it's not a bad thing to allow your emotions to be part of you. And when you talk about being authentic, I think that's part of why people see me as authentic, is because I don't try to shove all my emotions down in my belly and hide them. They can read my face when I walk in. Oh, she's not having a good day today. You know, she got up tired, or man, you know, she looks happy today. And I think that's, you know, I think it's a good thing. And I think that emotion is really one of the greatest assets that we underestimate and that we actually minimize the importance of when we come into a work environment. It's important.
Yeah, that's so nice. And one of the things I notice in your team is because you're so willing to be authentic and real, it gives people, it invites people to be the same. So people are much more relaxed, they're much more open, and they're much more willing just to be real. So, you know, I've worked a lot of different organizations, we all have, and in some organizations, and maybe some of you who are on the call can relate to this, you feel obligated to wear some kind of mask, you know, to sort of put the lid on in one way or the other. And I think in any workplace where you feel like you have the freedom to just be who you are is an incredible gift. And I think, you know, that really contributes to the willingness of people to really bring themselves to work every day. Now, of course, there are people who are just showing up to do their job for whatever, you know, to pay the rent or get their retirement benefits. But so many of the people who work for you that I know, and one of my goals is to learn everybody's name, is people just feel a sense of relief. And I see that they're starting to build a sense of trust and feel comfortable speaking up. And I think that comes from you giving them the freedom. And I'm sure many of you on the webinar have read one of my favorite books called The Fearless Organization by Amy Edmondson. I heard her speak live at an HR Congress in Brussels where I presented last year. And her book is really phenomenal. And she is doing what you're talking about, is creating, she speaks about how do you create that environment where people can just be who they are and be themselves fully and express themselves without feeling like they need to be, you know, putting on lids. And that comes from who you are. So I have great respect for that.
Thank
and
you.
I will say for those for those of you who don't know Carol, when we launched this Transform initiative with Houston Public Works, we did a 2.5-day retreat, strictly in accelerated growth process and strategy planning. And I told everybody, you know, come in jeans and sneakers and be relaxed. And one of the things Carol said is there are no stripes here. In other words, it doesn't matter what level you are, what your salary is, or what title. And Carol, you arrived in your
my t-shirt and my toe shoes.
Your toe shoes. Oh, yeah, very real. We have photos of that to prove as well. All right, so let's look at question number 3. So one of the topics I'm really fascinated about, and I think many women are, is how do you lead with soft strength? And what does it mean to lead with soft strength? And so let me, a little bit of context. I think for the most part, we're sort of raised in the workplace to believe that we need to be, you know, aggressive and sharp and quick and decisive and, you know, drive things and get things done. And those are really important assets, and they definitely have their place in every work environment. But there's something about bringing a softness to that maybe enables you to drive towards results more easily, more graciously, without having people feel like they're getting wrung out and beat up. So when I say leading with soft strength, what does that mean to you, and how do you lead with soft strength?
So for me, almost every day starts off with you have to trust your team. And when we talk about leading with soft strength, for me, it's about empowerment. It's about trusting that those players and those people, because it's all about the people every single day, have the necessary instruction, the necessary resources, and that they have the ability to do what it is you've assigned them to do. And when I say that, it's because when I was over a group of 6 people, I could do every job that was in that group. And if somebody was out sick, I could just do it for them. And if they were missing a deadline, I could just make it happen. But when you're over an organization with 4,000 people, you have to recognize, and I've actually said this in new employee orientation, and I've said it to some of our elected officials, guys, you need to understand that if I am the only person that shows up to work tomorrow and nobody's going to get me water, I mean, I can't do the job of 4,000 people. And so I have to lead in a way that empowers those 4,000 people to get those 4,000 jobs done and to actually get out of the way to allow them to do that. So for me, what does it mean to lead with soft strength? It's to have the courage to trust your employees to do their job and to empower them to do it.
Mm. Say that last sentence again. That was so good.
It's to have the courage to trust your employees to do the job and to empower them to do it.
Mm. Mm. You know, what comes to mind, I want to talk a little bit more about this, is you and I were chatting one day recently, and you said that whenever you're out driving in the city of Houston and you see a public works crew, that there's something that you do and a very interesting reaction that you get to that. Would you mind sharing?
So if I have time when I'm out driving around town and I see a public works crew, I stop and talk to them. I ask them what they're doing. I ask them, you know, what their job is, what they're doing, to explain it to me. And about half the time, people recognize that I'm the director. Some of them look at me like, I think I know you, maybe I don't. And some of them have no clue who I am. And they stop and they stop what they're doing. They explain to me what they have going on, and they teach me. And before I leave, I always talk to them about, you know, who I am, and that I want to thank them for what they're doing. But just giving them the opportunity to demonstrate their expertise in their job, and then to thank them for what they're doing, is an incredible opportunity. And I've run into people that I met just stopping in the field at some point. Later on, I see them in the building, or I see them somewhere else in town, and every single one of them says, I remember when you stopped by. And you know, and generally, because it's a pretty memorable experience, I can remember where it was and I can remember what it was, so I remember what they did. You know, oh yeah, you were showing me how you unclog a wastewater line, or you were showing me how you repair a fire hydrant. And it's those little things of, you know, when you talk about empowerment, having somebody explain their job to you in a prideful way is an amazing boost to anybody's morale.
Yeah, amazing. All right, we'll continue talking a little bit more about that question, but I want to move to question number 4. And I think this is so we all do, you know, get to speak with many women in the workplace. And I think for many of us, and especially women sort of rising up in leadership, maybe in their 30s or 40s, sometimes there's a sense of, I don't have the freedom to be true to myself. In other words, I need to behave or speak or make decisions in a way that's non-congruent with who I'm committed to being. And there's a sense of tension or struggle, especially for many of us, about how do you allow yourself the gift of doing the work that you do and rising up in leadership and doing that well and boldly and courageously, and taking care of yourself and your family. And it's that age-old conversation about, is it weak and indulgent, and do I have permission to be able to take care of myself, take care of my family, and in some cases put that before my work? So we'd love to hear from you, Carol. I mean, why do you think women sometimes in leadership struggle to be true to themselves, and maybe even sometimes find themselves selling out and then burning out and feeling frustrated or disgruntled or controlled in a way? What do you think about that?
So my experience in watching women around me and watching women in the generation before me and watching women in my generation and watching the women in generations coming up now has been that women have not been taught self-confidence growing up. We've been taught to seek approval outside of ourselves a lot. And so we're always looking for that approval. Now, I'm very unusual in that particular regard, and my mom and dad and my sisters and I have talked about this. God bless them. They raised us to be, to have our own internal meter and our own internal measurement and our own internal compass, and we're less susceptible to those outside influences, but that's not true throughout women as a whole. And I even look back at, friends I have in, 15, 20 years older than me. And there's a very, very strong pressure to use an outside measuring stick. And when you're doing that, it's very easy to lose sight of yourself when you're looking at that measuring stick. And so it becomes even more important for women to take that time for the self-care, to take that time to center yourself back on your measuring stick, to center yourself back on those things that are important to you, because those are the things that you should be measuring yourself against. At the end of the day, you have to look in the mirror, and you're the only one looking back at you when you say, did I do today what I needed to do? Or did I leave any regrets out there? Are there things I left unsaid, things I left undone, things I said I shouldn't have said? And it's against that measuring stick. Yes, you do have to worry what the outside world thinks. I mean, you can't just make up your own measuring stick and just say to heck with the rest of the world. But for the most part, my measurement is almost always going to be tighter and more demanding than anything somebody outside's going to put on me. And if I stay true to that, then I sleep well at night. When I don't stay true to that, that's when stress creeps in. That's when doubt creeps in. That's when what ifs begin to creep in. And those things can undermine not only what you're trying to do today, but they can actually undermine anything that you're trying to accomplish in a bigger setting when you let those creep in.
Yeah. Wow. I love what you said there. I'm not a big fan of Taylor Swift, but there's a documentary on Netflix. Maybe some of you have seen it. It's called Miss Americana, and it's about Taylor Swift's life. And one of the points she makes is exactly what you said, is that her whole life was oriented towards the applause and the approval from audiences. And when she got it, she felt good about herself. And when it was taken away, she was crushed. And it's worth watching. And so I thank you for making that point, because I think it's hard to be independent of the good opinion of others. It is. And I think that comes with building strength and muscle, and gives you, like you said, incredible freedom, because you're not looking out there for how people are responding, but you're looking internally to make sure that you're aligned with what is important to you. And I agree with you. When we don't do that, it generates stress. And you said, obviously it can impact business outcomes, but I think it impacts our health and well-being, and definitely our relationships at home. So thanks for saying that. That was a really awesome response. Let's look at question number 5. This is a picture of one of my many favorite people at Houston Public Works. This is Ray Belton, and maybe Carol, you'll speak a little bit about Ray and what Transform is. So when I started out the call, for those of you who maybe joined us a few minutes late, I was sharing that for the past 2 years, I've been working with Houston Public Works on this initiative to transform the culture and create a kinder, healthier, more trusting work environment. And I wonder if you'd share, Carol, first of all, why you decided to take on the transformation of so probably a very old kind of fear-based, top-down, siloed culture. And what you're noticing is starting to change as a result of this. I'm going to call it a movement, because that for me is the best way to explain it. Oh my gosh, did we lose Carol again? Oh boy. Okay, well, while she's coming back, I see a couple of you. Can you share the questions you're asking Carol? I want to ask myself these and reflect. Yes.
I'm sorry, my computer keeps going in and out.
Okay, I was just going to fill in the blanks and call on somebody else from your team to talk about Transform, but that's okay.
Which would have been absolutely perfect, because that's exactly what Transform is about. So when I started this role, one of the things that we as an executive team did, we sat around the table, and we were in a very uncertain time. I was the third director in months. We had Hurricane Harvey hit. We had, a whole bunch of things going on, and we sat around the table, and the one thing we talked about was that we had to be committed to each other to be a team, and that we had to be honest, and that we had to be truthful, and that we had to do everything that we were doing in a way that we were one voice. And in the process of doing that, we started talking about, okay, where do we want to be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Even though we were also thinking, how do we get to the end of this week sometimes? But so we decided that we were going to look back at our strategic plan, and Public Works had done a number of strategic plans in the past. And so we put out an RFP, and that's actually where we met you, Sandy. That was the first time we met you. And when you came
I think we're losing you. I think you're frozen again. You know what you might consider if somebody there is helping you is just to call in. Maybe the video is taking too much. So
interviewed for that.
Okay, so Carol, I think you're going in and out and your computer is freezing. And so it actually might be better to just turn the video off and just do audio at this point, and then rewind a couple of sentences.
Okay. We're also getting another computer brought in at the same time. So,
okay. So there was an RFP, and I think that's when we started to lose you.
Okay, so we put out the RFP for a strategic plan. And at that point, we were thinking of it in a little more traditional sense. And the little more traditional sense was kind of that table of contents. These are the traditional components in a strategic plan, and we're going to have a mission, vision, values. And when you came in and started talking to us about a resilient organization and resilient people, and how we needed to set ourselves up for success through basically taking care of the individual employees and the resilience, it just resounded to every leader in that room. And we immediately started thinking, okay, this isn't as much about having something on a piece of paper that we can check the boxes. This is about literally changing people's lives through making them more resilient people, making them better able to function in the world today, knowing that unknowns are going to be coming at us, knowing that, we had just had some of the biggest unknowns come at us as an organization that you could expect. The changes in leadership multiplied with the actual Hurricane Harvey and the devastation. We have 39 wastewater treatment plants. 17 of them were flooded in one way or another. We had employees, hundreds of employees that had water in their homes. And so how do we actually help our employees become more resilient people, which then makes us a more resilient organization? And so when we embarked on this Transform journey, the focus wasn't actually on performance metrics. And the focus still isn't on performance metrics. Those will happen. because we have resilient people who are passionate about serving the public. But our purpose and our focus is actually on those individual employees. When you were talking about the women being true to themselves, one of the things that I share with my new employee orientation every time that I get to talk with them, I've had people say to me, "Wow, you're important now." And I'm like, "Well, I've always been important. My mom told me I was important when I was 2. And someday I won't be the director and I'll still be important because I've always, because that's my importance is not tied to this title." And that is the culture that we're trying to instill in this organization, is that your importance as a human being, your importance as a person, is fundamentally the most important thing that our organization is built on, is respecting each individual person and helping them understand the importance of them individually and the importance that they bring to this organization every day when they choose to come join us.
So as you look back, that's so well said, thank you, and so unusual, to hear from a person in leadership, and not just to hear, but to hear it from somebody who really means it and is willing to stand behind it. It's one thing to say what you're saying, it's a whole other thing to stand behind it and make the investment of time and labor and resources to actualize it. So what have you noticed in the last 2 years in terms of the transformation that for you is most inspiring? I mean, obviously a lot of things have changed for a number of reasons, but if you could say 2 or 3 things that you've noticed have really shifted in the work environment that inspire you and give you a sense of peace and, I'm going to say, fulfillment.
I will say that one thing that I've seen kind of throughout the organization is there seems to be just a general recognition of and concern for our coworkers. We have some groups that somebody's going through a difficult time, and instead of allowing somebody to isolate themselves, coworkers step up and say, "How can we help you?" That they're seeing beyond themselves and beyond their job. I think other areas that we're seeing the benefits of the improvements, actually the outcome, not necessarily the purpose, because we are working very hard to improve our communication and to improve the way that we display respect through communication. We have actually improved our relationship with our elected officials across the street, and we've actually improved our relationship with the public. We still get complaints. I mean, when you have to tell somebody, "No, we can't do that because that's something that's on your private property and it's something you're going to have to fix," people don't like being told no. But we're seeing less and less complaints about how the message is delivered because of just one of the things that you brought to us in the class is using your words wisely. And I've had many people tell me, and then I stopped, and then I thought, and then I just said, "Thank you." Or, and sometimes it's really that simple. Or using your words wisely, going out of your way to say, "Hey guys, thanks for coming to help me at that presentation the other night. The fact that I didn't have to set up the projector and the screen and the chairs all by myself made the evening go a lot smoother." I would say that what I'm seeing is an acknowledgement that we work better together as a team. We accomplish more as a team.
Yeah. And I think that was the intention, is to create one team, one purpose, and really create that sense of unity. And I know Alana, your director of communications, had a lot to do with that as well, in bringing people together and feeling like nobody's less than or more than. There's no less one-upping and like that. It's you raised such an interesting point. I was at a retreat this past weekend, a women's retreat, and we were talking about women in leadership roles, and somebody said to me, "What's your leadership philosophy? Of all the great leadership philosophies and programs that are out there, which is your favorite?" And so my response was, at the end of the day, I think the best way to lead is just to be a good human being and treat people with kindness and respect. And all of the philosophies and the tools are all useful and they all have their place. But sometimes we get trapped into thinking that we have to be part of this new way of doing things or subscribe to some magnificent philosophy. And then as a result of that, we step over or we don't notice the fundamentals. And so part of what you're saying and what I'm hearing what you're saying is just go back to fundamentals and treat people with kindness and respect and then give them an exciting future to live into and empower them and then watch them rise up. Yeah?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's amazing what just throughout the organization, shaking somebody's hand, looking them in the eye. I've actually had people in facilities that I go out to say a director's never spoken to me. I gave a service anniversary to somebody who'd been 35 years at the city, and they had never met a director.
Wow.
And I can't be everywhere, and I can't, be in every single facility and every single place everywhere. But when I am in those places, I appreciate the fact that there are people there working as hard as they do, doing what they do for the city of Houston. And one of the other things that I have come to appreciate is that not only can't I be the best at every single job that Public Works does, I don't want to. I want the people that I have doing those jobs to be absolutely the best person for that job at that time. And if I don't have the confidence that I can find and put those people in those positions, then I'm not doing my job as director of this organization. And so that's when we talked earlier about courage and trust, that's where that all comes down to, is I have to make sure that I have the absolute best person, the most qualified, the most competent. And that doesn't mean necessarily technically the best. In an engineering organization, we're always thinking about technically the best. Sometimes our best leaders are the ones that may not have the strongest technical skills, but they have the best leadership skills for getting the job done that needs to get done.
Yeah, well said. Brilliant. So that was question number 5. We have one more question for Carol, and then I want to be sure that those of you who have questions, feel free to post your questions in the chat, and we'll try to take as many, 2 or 3 of those questions. But I did want to let you know, for those of you who are interested in being exposed and learning the skills and tools that have been given to Houston Public Works and have created this incredible transformation for people, not only in their work lives, but in their home and their community lives as well. The ripple effect is really profound. Once a year, I do an open enrollment raw leadership program, a day and a half. And I do it in the Gorilla Treehouse in the Houston Zoo, which is just this amazing venue. I mean, you're literally in a room in the middle of the gorilla enclosure. The gorillas can't get to you. There are glass walls. And it's a very stimulating and enlivening environment where you really get to break out of the way you see things, the way you think about things, the way you perceive yourself. And this program, I'm sure many of you know this, has been delivered to about 40,000 people in 50 countries and 6 languages. And it's fundamental. The ideas, as Carol said, are really simple and practical and universal, but they really create a transformation, personal transformation, as well as the possibility for transforming your organization. I think we have 3 seats left. So, and I did set up a discount code for you, I think. If I didn't and you want to come, let me know. And we'll make sure that you can get there and be sort of at the seed level to see the possibility for you to take this to your team or your organization. For those of you who can't make it to the Gorilla Treehouse, and I know many of you are already on Raw Stronger, the e-course, where you can get what you need to build resilience. This is sort of the extension of the core curriculum, and it's delivered in a very flexible, easy, accessible, and fun way where you get to interact with people all around the world on a discussion forum and get sort of bite-sized learning. And you're welcome to use the code STARTROARING to get your first month free. So be sure to check that out. So we want to invite you to ask Carol any questions. We still have a couple more minutes. If you post your question in the chat, we can sift through those and ask your question of Carol. So feel free to go ahead and do that. And while people are posting their questions, Carol, I'm wondering if you would sort of wrap up in just a couple of minutes. What do you want your legacy to be? So when you leave and go wherever you're going to go, whenever that might be, what is it that you want to leave behind?
You know, this is always one of those, probably one of the most difficult questions you ever get asked, because for me, the legacy is not a building or a project or a specific thing. When I leave this organization, and I always say when, because it's not if, it's when. Because at some point, if I'm still here when I'm eligible to retire, one of my career goals is to retire. So it is when, is that the organization has evolved to the point that we truly represent what our purpose is. Together we create a strong foundation for Houston to thrive. And that together is the team that's in place that day. It's the team that, it's the next director that comes in. It's the next backhoe operator that comes in. It's the next water plant operator that comes in. That as we continue to grow and evolve this team, that we've created a culture that supports and grows people and leaders, such that it becomes somewhat self-sustaining, that we have the right processes in place, we have the right training in place, we have the right culture in place, that people look at public works as a place to come work because you want to serve the public and you know that your life and your career will succeed, that it will thrive. Yeah. And I believe that we have the ability to do that. And we have an unusual ability to do that in the sense that we have jobs that people that don't have college degrees can come and be very successful and have a life of public service, and be just as important to us accomplishing our mission as people with degrees in engineering, people with master's degrees and PhDs. It takes every single one of us. So when you ask me what my legacy is, it is really that our organization, that our culture becomes authentic and transparent and contagious, to the point that people fight to come work for us and that we can't help but succeed in what we're achieving every day.
So nice, thank you. I have a question from Sierra. You know Sierra Clark.
I do know Sierra.
Sierra Clark. And she asks, Carol, what has been your most career-defining moment so far since becoming director?
My most career-defining moment. I will probably say that it actually had to do with a council meeting when some things were completely out of the control of Public Works, and we were getting beat up pretty strongly by City Council for some decisions and some timelines that were made that were beyond our control. And to sit up there and professionally take the attack and the frustration that was coming at us and have the courage not to react. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that was one of those times that the mayor looked at me and said, oh, okay, she could do this job. Because it really for me, and a lot of people, you're like, well, why is that career defining? Well, as somebody who's coming out of an operational organization and with a technical background, to wade into that world where, I mean, over here, we control almost everything. And then when you go outside our organization and to be able to succeed in an environment which you have little control over everything, or no control over everything, for me has been one of those career defining moments of recognizing that I don't have to be in control of everything. I have to be resilient enough to be able to continue doing my job in whatever environment that I'm in.
Yeah, that's so great. To be able to face any storm, any circumstance, and stay true to yourself, stand firm, because you're so deeply rooted to your purpose and to your organization's purpose. And maybe there are times when we face a storm, and I think we've all had this experience where we might shake a little bit, but you don't want to break, you know. And maybe
the trees sway.
Yeah, exactly. You want to just be able to come right back to center. I think that's such a beautiful, I'm going to wrap up here because I want to be respectful of your time and everybody else's time. So I just want to say thank you for your incredible grace and taking the time to have this conversation with us. And I think it's so valuable for all of us to see women in leadership roles like yourself who are leading with kindness, authenticity, compassion, and respect, and have a real commitment to having that be an underpinning for the culture. And I'm sure everybody on the call has really gotten some really valuable food for thought. I know I have, and it's such a joy working with you. And I'm so excited to watch sort of the next level of success for Houston Public Works and how that is rippling out to impact so many people's lives in a positive way. So thank you all for joining us and taking the time to invest in your learning. And for those of you who are women on this call, I hope that this has helped to give you the strength and courage to be independent of other people's opinions and not attached to other people's approval, and to have the courage and strength to stay true to yourself and take care of yourself first and your family, and know that your work will get taken care of as well. I will send out a follow-up email with the slides and a couple of ideas and resources for you, as well as a copy of this recorded webinar for you to review and to share. Thank you all, everybody. Huge, huge roar. Somebody says this was incredibly encouraging, great session. Feel free to leave your closing comments as you leave. Carol, do you just want to say a couple more words and we'll wrap up?
Absolutely. It's Sandy, I will say that you have brought a perspective to our organization that we knew we needed, but we didn't know what it was that we needed. And so we thank you for your partnership with us as we make these changes. And for those of you out there that are in Houston Public Works, and those of you out there that are not in Houston Public Works, you know, the thing is that it is intentional to think about these things every single day, and know that we are going to make choices, we're going to take actions, and some days we're going to do it better than others, and there are going to be times that we stub our toe, or we don't quite get everything exactly right. But at the end of the day, look yourself in the mirror, come back to your center, and get up the next day and forgive yourself for anything that happened the day before, and use your words wisely again the next day. Keep coming back at it and keep trying. I was talking to somebody, you know, I'm not going to get up and go run a marathon without having gone through the training to get there. And so the same thing is true when you look at these types of transformations that you're making in your life. It takes practice. It takes doing it over and over and over and growing. And so those of you that are starting on this journey, join us. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we will be here to support you and help you find your center again. And for those of you that are doing better at it, then step up and let's keep helping the next group come with us.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Melissa, for your great comments and reminder for all of us, as you say it so beautiful, Melissa Masterholder, to come back to your compassionate center. And if we can be in our compassionate center, in our heart, more consistently, that's really where our greatest success and the greatest business results come from. And this is such an exciting time to be a woman in the business world, isn't it? Where we're really getting to see the shift and the influence that we can have. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day, and make sure you let your roar be heard loud and strong. Thank you. Thanks, Carol. Really appreciate it.